Well, hello and welcome. You've clicked onto the Waters and Stanton video channel, and I'm glad you could join me. This video we're going to talk about the new Elecraft K4, but before that, something right at the other end of the scale. I mentioned some while ago that I was having a little spy transceiver built for me, and that's progressing quite well, and I'll just show you a clip in a second on the screen. But it's quite interesting and quite fascinating, I think, to go back in time to the days when we had valves. And unfortunately, I can remember those days. We had 250 volts, give you quite a shock. The valves got quite hot. They burnt, but we had some fun. Anyway, let me show you where we are with this little Paraset spy transceiver. The reason I call it a spy transceiver is because it was. It was used right at the beginning of the Second World War, and despite its simplicity, it did some useful service in those very critical first days of the war. So let me just show you on the screen here. It's a very short clip. Now you can see that it's basically built, or at least the front panel is built and the wiring is done. It needs to be put in a case, and it's quite exciting. So as soon as I get this transceiver, which is still a little way away actually yet, because some of the component parts were very difficult to get, but as soon as I get this transceiver, I will do an extensive video on it, and we'll together step back in time. But now let's go forward in time, the Elecraft K4. I'm not going to do a technical review on the radio because that's already been covered in various videos. Eric Schwartz of Elecraft has done some very interesting videos, and of course there have been publications on the K4, the first sort of prototypes that appeared in America. At the moment, Peter Hart is about to do a review on the K4, so by the time you read this, or rather watch this video, I will no longer have the K4. It'll be in the hands of Peter Hart for a Radcom review. What I want to do is to approach it from the practical aspect, the first impressions, because I think for a lot of people, they will gloss over if they see all these figures. But what are my first impressions of the K4? What are the features that I like? And I hope that in the process of this video I cover topics which will be of interest. If I've missed things out, I'm terribly sorry, and I can't go back now because I don't have the radio. But anyway, let's take a look at the K4 and things that I like about it. Here's a comparison showing the original K3 and the new K4. The basic architecture is very similar, so a lot of the buttons that K3 owners are familiar with will be in the position expected on the K4. Despite its increase in size, the K4 weighs in at approximately 4.5 kilos, so that still makes it a very attractive proposition for de-expeditions and other portable operations. I've said in previous videos, but I'll repeat again, that the modern transceiver works extremely well, and Bob Sherwood of Sherwood Engineering did a talk fairly recently and admitted really that all the modern radios perform extremely well, and the difference between them is very small. So if you look at the Sherwood engineering ratings, you'll see that some are at the top and some are further down, but the differences are very minor. And as Bob said, a lot of the performance figures now have really reached the point at which there is no point in going any further, or indeed possibility of going any further, at least at the moment. But I think the thing that interests most people is the facilities, the ease of use, the appearance, the touch. These are things that will determine whether you buy a particular radio or not. And even, dare I say, the display, the colour of the display, because some people have got eye problems, they find some displays better than others. But whatever radio you choose now, in general, in a particular price bracket, is probably very similar in performance to another radio of a similar price. There may be differences, but those differences are fundamental in the way the radio perhaps works, the functionality, the menus, the way you can get to things and so forth. So they are the features really that I think most people will be interested in. Looking at the rear panel, it uses a power pole connector for the DC in, and of course you get the DC lead ready wired for that. You've got 3 antenna sockets here. The standard one I think comes with 2, but because I've got the auto ATU into this transceiver, you get an extra antenna socket. This one here I think is for the VHF transverters as and when they appear. You've got 2 cooling fans and they run pretty quiet. And as well as the internal transverter that Elecraft are going to produce, you've also got transverter in and out if you're going to use an external transverter. You've also got provision for a separate receive antenna, which is quite useful if you want to use a loop, particularly if you've got noise. So you can use the loop for receiving on, and then another antenna to transmit on. You've got PTT in and out. The out would be used for a linear. And interestingly enough, you've got 2 CW keys. You've got a straight key and a paddle key input. Then further up, you've got an Ethernet connection there, 2 USB connectors, a PC connector, and a video out for using an external screen. So it's all pretty well covered, and connectivity is very, very good indeed. And serial number is 0163, so it looks as if they haven't actually produced that many at the moment. This is number 163 of the current production, and generally speaking, Elecraft serial numbers run in sequence, so the very first one would have been 0001. When you switch the radio on, you have to be a little bit patient. It takes around about 20 seconds to boot up, but that is quite common with some of these more complicated, heavily software defined radios. No problem in finding the power button, it's very obvious at the top there. It's a dual receive, but when you switch the radio on, you'll just have one receiver working, and this control there, which is a dual concentric control, the smaller one controls the main receiver volume. And you'll notice up there is an extra USB socket as well, which is the duplicate of what is on the rear. Having switched the radio on, you want to change band. You'll see there's some items along the bottom here. You press band, and there you've got the various bands to choose from. It confused me a little bit because it hops up and down. You've got 7, 10, 14, 18, 21, 24. But anyway, once you sussed it out, you know which button to press and where to press it. It's got a nice big tuning dial with a nice feel about it, and you can change the tuning rates by just tapping the dial on the frequency and choosing a different rate of tuning. And you've also got a sort of fast tuning button there if you want to whip up and down the band. You'll notice from this video that the screen is reflective. It's a high gloss screen, which I think improves the clarity and sharpness of the display, but you do get some reflections which are probably accentuated by the camera and the angle I'm shooting at the moment. Now you'll see that we've got the traditional rainfall display. It's very, very good. You can adjust the sensitivity of it, and you can also adjust the overall brightness of the screen and the contrast and so forth. The way I've set this up at the moment is that the display behind is stationary. When I move the tuning dial, you can see it moving across the screen. If I spot a station there, I press it there and I've selected the station. If I spot a station there, I press the dial and I'm there. You have to do a bit of fine tuning, but it's very easy to move the tuning across the dial just like that. If you want to adjust the width of the display, you just press display there, and you see I've already selected the width of the display, 100 kilohertz at the moment. I just rotate the main dial there, and I can change the width of this display to whatever I like. Press that again and we come out of the menu item. The speaker is upward facing. It's quite a small aperture, but it's good quality coming out of there. But you can, rather like the K3, you can change, there's equalisation, there's multi-channel equalisation for receive, so you can change the sort of tone or the shape of the audio to emphasise bass or treble, which may help you if you've got a hearing problem. And likewise, the transmitter has also got a similar control. The waterfall display I really like. It's one of the best I've used. And I really like the display because it's so sharp and easy to read, and you can make it as bright as you like or as dull as you like to suit your own preference and of course the lighting conditions. Now Elecraft seem to have taken a lesson from ICOM in this side display here. You've got in this top section here, you've got compression or mic gain, and if I press this button here, I go to the next one, which gives me either the power of the transceiver, which I can vary by rotating the button, or I can adjust the delay, which would be relative for Vox or for CW operation. Now if we come down a bit, you've got the control there for the IF bandwidth, and if we press that button we can then go down to the shift, and like the K3, if you hold that button in, it gives you the default position. Go up to the bandwidth, hold it in, and it gives you the default position, so you can very quickly go back to the default position for both bandwidth and IF shift. Just on the left here you've got a combined RF gain and squelch control. Interesting enough, if you reduce the RF gain it doesn't change the level of the waterfall display, which I rather like. So you can adjust the RF gain to suit your own purposes, or you can have an automatic RF gain setting. And if you want to adjust the waterfall level, then there is a separate control for that within the menu system. You know, when you've been working with ham radio equipment for as many years as I have, you soon or very quickly come to a feel about a radio. And after I'd been playing with the K4 for an hour or so, I really liked it, and I could actually feel that it was Elecraft. I could feel it was a development from K3. Now, from the K3. Now I know this sounds a little bit sort of, you know, what's he talking about? But there is a feel about a radio. When you switch a radio on and you play with it for a little while, you start to get a feel for the radio, how it sounds, how it functions, and the confidence and this sort of thing. And quite clearly the K4 is a development of the K3. Lots of things about it are very similar, but that screen is the thing that really grabs you. The quality of the audio from the speaker sounds great, and it just performs and feels like an Elecraft transceiver. And with QSK, if you operate CW, the silent switch from receive to transmit and back to receive is silent. I mean, the only thing that happens is the receiver goes quiet. But if you turn the volume down and go from transmit to receive, you wouldn't know anything's happening apart from the indication on the front panel. So yes, I do like it. So let's now venture a little bit further into the radio and see what else we can find. Golf 3 Oscar Juliet Victor.
Yeah, okay, T3OJV there, Peter, 15 kilometre east from London. Don't think you much for the report here.
Let's put there's a bit of noise there, I don't know if you can hear it, a bit of noise. I'm going to put the noise reduction in. So that's without any noise reduction. And that's with the noise reduction in. Turn the volume down a bit. But if I hold the noise reduction in, I can actually change the value to whatever I want. Let's just try and demonstrate the bandwidth. I'll put the mic near the speaker. This is with a wide filter setting, and as I reduce it, you can probably hear the improvement. And that is down to about 2.4 seems to be quite good actually. If I open it up, you'll hear the noise come up. So 2.4 is quite punchy. Some of the controls are duplicated. There's a button here which says mode. I'll press the mode, up comes the menu system. But if I also press the mode up there, get it right, there we are, the mode comes up there, so you can switch the mode on and off up there, or a button there. And one of the things that I do like for CW operation is the audio filter. That audio filter in conjunction with the bandwidth filter really brings CW signals out. So I'm going to try and find a CW signal, and then I'll switch the filter, the audio filter, in and out. I think that gave you some idea of how effective that audio filter is for CW. I really like it.
From the north end of Norway, Lima Alpha, 1, Charlie, India, 9TQ and listening.
Like all transceivers, well most transceivers anyway, you've got dual Vfos. You've got VFO A and VFO B, and VFO A is controlled by the main knob here, and VFO B is controlled by the smaller knob here. And you can transfer that frequency to VFO B or VFO B's frequency to VFO A by moving or pressing those buttons there. Now let's take a look at the second receiver. The second receiver is, when you switch the radio on for the first time, is switched off. But if I press that button there, the second receiver comes on. Now that second receiver is controlled using VFO B. So in effect, when the second receiver is on, VFO A is the main receiver and VFO B is the sub receiver. Now if I pull the camera out, you'll get the idea. The small knob on the left hand side is the knob for the main receiver, and if I use the main tuning control, you can hear that's the main receiver working. I turn the small knob down and raise the larger knob and tune this. Well, it's not very nice, is it? But there we are. you can hear that's the sub-receiver there, which is being tuned by the VFO B knob. Turn that down and turn the other one up. We're on the main receiver. Now, if I want to transfer that frequency to VFO-B for any reason, I press that button, and now the two radios, or the two receivers, are on the same frequency. There's not much to hear there. If I turn that down and turn that up, I should be hearing the same thing. That's a sub-receiver. That's the main receiver. They're on the same frequency. Sub-receiver, main receiver. Now it can get rather interesting, because if you look at the menu here, you've got two menu items. You've got the main receiver, so if I press that, I can then set up the main receiver as I want. If I press the sub-receiver, I can set up the sub-receiver as I want. So you can have the two receivers with different filter, bandwidths, etc., different modes, whatever you want. Now here's another interesting feature. If I press display, if you look on the left hand side, it says pan equals A. That means to say this panoramic display is reading VFO A or the main receiver. Now if I press it there, it's now changed to pan equals B. So now the panoramic display is reading VFO B. Now if I press it again, we've now got pan equals A plus B. And if I take this out, you'll see that we've got two displays. We've got one display for the VFO B receiver, and you can see that the cursor is moving there. And we've got another display for VFO A, in other words the main receiver. And if the cursor was on the screen, which is not, where are we? Oh, there we are. And then you can see the cursor moving there. So we've got a display for the main receiver and a display for the sub-receiver. That is incredibly useful. Now, when you change bands, we're on 14 megs at the moment, we go to 7 megs, you'll see that both VFOs go to 7 megs. So VFO A and VFO B, or the main receiver and the sub-receiver, follow the same band. If you go into the menu system, you can actually unlock those. So one VFO will be on one band and one VFO can be on another band. So that's quite a useful feature. Well, while we're talking about menu systems, let's just show you how simple the menu is. If you press menu there, and you just rotate the main dial up and down like that, you go through all the various menu items. Now, each menu item is locked. If you press that padlock there, I'm not going to do it now, if you press that padlock there, it unlocks, and then the main dial will change the value on the right hand side. So getting into the menu system is incredibly easy, and it's all alphabetically arranged. And if you're really stuck, you can press that, and then you've got the manual. Press an item there, and you can read the manual. That is quite useful. Here's another feature I found out, that if you press or hold your finger on the S meter for a second, you'll get a magnified view of the signal that you're listening to. Press it again and you go back to the S meter. There's a number of programmable functions here. You can see across the top row there. On the far right there's a DX list, and if I press that, you'll see a list of all the DX prefixes coming up, and you can scroll through them like that, or if you press the button you can then do a search on the screen with the built-in keyboard.
You know, she put a little bit of butter on the Waters steel plate, and
These are the features that I've been using and I like on the K4. But there's a lot more depth to the Elecraft K4 than I've covered in this video. It's an incredibly flexible radio. I would say probably it's the most flexible radio currently on the market. You can connect it with anything. You can have audio in the back, audio in the front. You've got multiple ways of connecting the transceiver to the computer. It's very flexible in terms of remote control. If you want to use remote control, it's incredibly flexible there. It will decode RTTY, PSK31, CW on the screen, and you can actually send RTTY and PSK31 from the K4 directly if you've got a paddle key, and you can send CW. And you saw the function keys there, they are programmable. And in fact, what you will end up doing ultimately is programming this radio to suit exactly the style of operating that you prefer. And as I think I've already said, it's very lightweight, so it's still very applicable for the expeditions and portable operation and so forth. Now, Elecraft generally, the good thing about Elecraft is that it's a great investment. I still use the K3 on occasions, and I've had a K3 now for about 7 or 8 years. The good thing about the K3, it was upgradable, and Elecraft are run by a couple of very active amateurs, Wayne and Eric, and they are very keen to include features which people have suggested or things that they suddenly realise they can do to improve the performance as technology goes along. And the same is going to happen with the K4. The K4 is going to be a radio that you can invest in. It's not going to be out of date in 2 or 3 years' time, but it will probably be a somewhat different radio that you buy today that you operate in 4 years' time, because there will be firmware updates. And to give you some sort of idea of how things are progressing, I recently read a little post from Wayne saying that they were looking at an algorithm on the K4 to improve the noise reduction. Now, noise reduction, generally speaking, makes reception more comfortable. It doesn't uncover signals, but it reduces the noise and makes the copy a little bit easier. Well, apparently they're now working on an algorithm which has the capability, they think, of uncovering signals. So signals that you couldn't even hear can be uncovered. Another idea that I know they've been working on is, again, noise reduction, is using the 2 receivers to form a form of noise cancelling, so that the main receiver receives the signal, the sub-receiver is designed to receive just the noise. So I presume you put a short aerial on it just to sense the noise, and that noise will then cancel out the noise on the main antenna and again uncover signals. So you see, Elecraft is a great investment. It does tend to hold its price, and I think the K4 is going to be quite a long-lived radio, if that's the right word. I'm not sure it's the right word. But it's going to have a long life because it will benefit from all the firmware updates. And the firmware updates are very simple to implement. You actually get a lead in the package that enables you to just plug it into your computer. You can check whether you've got the latest firmware or not. And if you haven't, you can then say, yes, I'd like to update my transceiver. It's that simple. So I've dealt with a very complicated radio, but only touched the surface. If you buy a K4, you're going to spend a lot of time exploring it, and it's great fun to explore it. And it can do all sorts of amazing tricks, and I'm sure a lot of them I haven't even discovered myself. So thank you for watching this video. As I said at the outset, this is not an in-depth review of the radio, because that's has been done and will be done, and the next one, as far as UK listeners are concerned, or UK operators are concerned, will be the Radcom review, which is just starting about now. So thanks for watching this video. I hope I've done the justice to the radio. I'm sure I have. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, press the subscribe button, because we've got all sorts of things on this video channel that pop up from time to time. You'd be surprised. So keep in touch. Enjoy your ham radio. Take care. Speak soon. And remember, all Elecraft K4 transceivers ordered through Waters and Stanton benefit from the UK 24-month warranty supported at Portsmouth, England.